Over time, she has come to the conclusion that the majority of successful people all share one critical thing: grit. Grit is that extra something that separates the most successful people from the rest. It's the passion, perseverance, and stamina that we must channel in order to stick with our dreams until they become a reality. Developing grit is all about habitually doing the things that no one else is willing to do. There are quite a few signs that you have a grit, and if you aren't doing the following on a regular basis, you should be.
You're listening to the UnCommonCore podcast with your host Thomas Howell.
In a recent study at the College of William and Mary, they interviewed over 800 entrepreneurs and found that the most successful among them tend to have two critical things in common. They're terrible at imagining failure, and they tend not to care what other people think of them. In other words, the most successful entrepreneurs put no time or energy into stressing about their failures, as they see failure as a small and necessary step in the process of reaching their goals.
Okay, let me pause you there for a second. You guys get that? So this is actually kind of an interesting article. So I noticed it in classrooms where some people, they're sitting here, or in any classroom, not necessarily this one, maybe even a college classroom or, a university. And some people just don't even pay attention, or, other people kind of do, even though it's boring and they know what's going on, and maybe they make something out of it, Other people just look at their phones. And that's a measure of success. If you could be where you are, and focus and try hard, that's what they're saying. That's what you call grit. But number one, mistakes, being afraid to look like an idiot. See? But it's not just looking like an idiot. It's continuing on. What do you guys say about that? Any comment about that? What do you think, Mr. Poley?
Yeah, that's correct. The more you strive, or you don't need to surrender immediately. It's like you have to, when you fall, you have to stand up again.
Very, very good. Like the Rocky movies, right?
Yeah.
The Rocky movies are a good example because, the first Rocky movie was about that, falling down and getting back up and winning. And the sixth Rocky movie was about that too, about falling down and getting up. And the irony of the Rocky movies is movies 2 through 5 sucked. But he still got back up and made Rocky 6. And that put a good end cap to his Rocky movie series. Even though he had a series of horrible movies, he came back and made a good one in the end. And now people have a better feeling about it. Just didn't crash and burn. So yeah, exactly. Getting back up. Anybody see Rocky 6? It's actually pretty good, actually. First one's good. Last one's good.
Last one is good.
Yeah. The 2, 3, 4, and 5 they were just silly movies. Okay, number 2.
You always have two choices when things begin to get tough. You can either overcome an obstacle and grow in the process, or let it be to you. Humans are creatures of habit. If you quit when things get tough, it gets that much easier to quit the next time. On the other hand, if you force yourself to push through it, the grit begins to grow in you.
The grit begins to grow in you. I think this is true. You guys agree with this? What they're saying is that once you get in the habit of giving up, you continue that pattern. Once you get in the habit of standing up and continuing after being knocked down, you continue that pattern. So which is the better pattern? It's the pattern of getting back up again, right?
Yeah.
So think about that. Maybe we'll read the rest of these things. This is from Forbes magazine. Maybe next time we'll continue and read some of the other ones. I think it's kind of useful. Because right now, you guys are showing a little bit of grit by doing what? Huh? Well, you're right. You're not getting up and leaving because it's 2 or 3 minutes before the end of class. you're waiting that extra couple of seconds. That shows you have a little bit of grit. But that's okay. You guys can go now. Hello, this is episode 4, the third and final part of the class recordings I mentioned in episode 1. The following is a live-to-tape recording made in class just as the death of DavidRJones hit the news in January of 2016. All the audio clips were from YouTube. I felt obliged to share who David Jones was and why he was important, not only for my class, but for you listening to this podcast, particularly those of you in or from Asia, the Middle East, and South America, who may not be familiar with his work. As always, tell a friend, subscribe, and give feedback on iTunes. And now I hope you enjoy our class about the life and work of David Bowie. Because this is the big news. We have David Bowie here. A couple of days ago, we might have read about his new album and stuff, but then he died. I know a little bit about, well, I know quite a bit actually about David Bowie. So if you guys have questions or want something explained, I could do that. We also guess have the internet here, so we can always check with some things. So I'm not so sure he's that popular in, you guys are from where now? You guys are from Taiwan. He's popular in Taiwan. Well, he's popular in Taiwan. He's not that popular in China. I think he was popular in some of the big cities, Shanghai.
I saw a picture. Sometimes she's like a girl or woman.
Yeah, well, you haven't been following his career, but I'll explain
He's
it.
bisexual, right?
Well, he was one of the first artists to come out when he was in the 70s, to come out as being androgynous, what they called, which is kind of basically bisexual or gay. He said it was an okay lifestyle when he first started. And so he was the first artist to really come out and say that, and people thought it was, well, he was never really like a pop artist. So when people like Elton John, for example, came out as being gay, people were upset because he was a pop artist. He was popular culture. David Bowie was never really just popular culture. So when he came out and he said he was gay, it kind of fit his persona. And they say, oh, yeah.
England, right? He came from England, right?
Yeah, he's British.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, but he's, I guess you could say when he was young he's bisexual, but for most of his life he was, I guess he's got married
But
and
last
had
night I saw the
kids.
news.
So.
He got married with a model and had 2 kids.
Yeah, there's a picture of him right here with his wife Iman. Yeah, one of the things about him is that the days when he did things like that, since you mentioned being gay, back then it was extreme. It was not part of the mainstream culture, but now we kind of accept it. I mean, it's very well accepted. And many of the things that he did, and many of the albums also, including the music and the art that he did, wasn't really understood or appreciated when he did it, but now it is. So he was one of these people who truly was ahead of his time. He truly was one of these people that was ahead of his time.
His left eye, right, is not two eyes. What happened?
His eyes are also 2 different colors.
No. His left eye is not true. It's like a accident, and the black.
Yeah, there was an accident, but he kind of explained that later in his interviews. When he first started out, the fact that he might have been gay, and the fact that his eyes were different color, and that he dressed. He had a lot of things about him that were very unusual. I could show you if you guys don't know. I'll show you a picture
Okay.
when he was young.
He died very young, just 69 years old. Died of cancer.
Well, I wouldn't call that young, but
It's young. 69 is young.
okay.
You see, he's old.
No, well, I mean, you know, I guess it depends on how old you are. You are to know, you know. But let's go to Google. I can't. These other web browsers don't work as well. Yeah, that's. I guess it's young. Yeah. See.
This side.
Here he is.
This side,
You can
yeah.
see his eyes. These are.
The different color, the eyeball different color.
Yeah, it looks like you see his eyes.
Yeah.
This is when he's older too. When he was younger and he first came out, and he was, yeah, he was,
Different eyes, different color.
yeah. So his eyes were different colored. See here it's exaggerated. This is what it was like before. They exaggerated it a little bit, but this is for a while. This was just another unusual thing about him, and it added to his persona. Somebody punched him when he was a kid or something like that, yeah. See this picture right here? So it just added to his, see, here he's a cat. You can see one of the very,
color eyes.
no, I don't know. Yeah, whenever you do a search, there's always somebody or something in there that doesn't fit. So anyway, here you go. That must be his
For
son.
the 70s, right? He made up the face very popular.
See here, he looks, this little, that's him when he was a kid.
Is he?
No, as I said, sometimes when you do searches, you come up with things that aren't related. Then this little kid with the wild hair chewing on his hand is not anything related to Bowie. But anyway, so there you go.
Oh, this one. Another one is popular the picture. I saw
Yeah.
the face.
So quite a lot of. Actually, if you just kind of search these images, almost all of these are of him, like 95%. You can get just an idea of the scope of his career without even reading anything, just going through these pictures. You know?
Did you see the Lady Gaga copy from him or not?
What?
Lady Gaga. The Lady Gaga.
Yeah. A lot of people did.
Yeah, I think they copied from him.
The guy from Kiss has said a lot of things, was inspired by him. He talked about it as well.
Get more now on Bowie's unexpected death and enduring legacy. I'm joined by another legend of rock, the co-founder of Kiss, Gene Simmons, joins me now from CNN Los Angeles. Thanks very much for being with us, Gene Simmons. You tweeted something. You said, changes in Ziggy's story were a major influence on me. Tell us a little bit more about how David Bowie influenced your music.
Well, in 1975 in New York City, both David and Kiss were in the same recording studio, and we had yet to sort of ascend and play the stadiums and all that. We were still a new band. Some people knew about us, some not. David Bowie, I don't know why, made it a point of inviting us into his recording session. And, you know, we were all nervous and stuff. And I remember walking in, and even though we didn't know each other, he smiled and looked me right in the eye and stuck his hand out and said, "Hello, wonderful to meet you." And I was, I was taken aback. I was awestruck by, a giant, this guy who changed the face of music, refused to stand still and look over his shoulder while he was running his own race. He just continued to move as fast as he could forward, marching to the beat of his own drums. Ziggy especially, the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust, especially that record, is deeply ingrained in my DNA. And I think, he passed 3 days after his birthday at 69, and he just released a brand new record called Black Star. And I think it's worth noting that the first lyric in the first song says, "Look up here, I'm in heaven." I mean, what a giant.
Yeah, unbelievable. And it's not, and we've been talking about his legacy. It's a musical legacy, of course, but it's an artistic legacy. And Kiss knows something about, costumes and on-stage personas. What is it about that adds or complements the music? Bowie, it seems to me, always understood that when people go to concerts,
they're not just listening to music, they're listening with their eyes, and that you've got to give more. And heaven knows, Bowie gave his fans and everybody else much more. I think it's worth noting that unlike us and unlike all the rest of the famous people out there, he refused to stand still. And which is why it's astonishing when you look through the decades and through the years, you can never pinpoint who David Bowie was, because he was so many things. His musical homage, even in that line, "Wham Bam Thank You Ma'am," in a song called Suffragette City, is an ode to Charlie Mingus, the great jazz artist, and his drummer Max Roach, who used to say, "Wham Bam Thank You Ma'am." I mean, well, this guy was, you just can't define exactly what he was. He was unique, and it's worth noting that there are a lot of famous rap stars and pop stars and all that stuff. It ain't the same thing. The word icon is reserved. The air up there is thin, and there are very few up there who deserve to be up there, and clearly David Bowie is.
And he certainly is up there. We even heard from artists like Kanye West and others who said essentially David Bowie was this major influence on me. But when you heard about his passing today, what was your reaction initially? I mean, it was a shock. We weren't expecting it. Everybody kind of woke up to the news, and each person had their own emotional response to it.
Very, very sad day, but like Bowie always has been throughout his life, he just didn't use his private life as another headline for CNN or anybody else. He understood that he was, I'm assuming he understood that he wasn't well, and decided not to drag the media into it, and quietly and humbly and, royally went his own way. He was a giant.
He was. And Gene Simmons, I want to ask you before we leave it here, if you had to speak to younger music fans, I mean, I'm of the generation where the Let's Dance album came out, I was a teenager, etc. But some of the younger music fans know his name, of course. They know some of the top hits. But if you were to tell them about his legacy, about his iconic status, what would you tell the younger ones?
Perhaps the best thing I could advise that next 15-year-old kid, because trust me, there are new undiscovered talents out there. And while you're busy listening to your pop stars and your rap stars, and they're famous, and that's great, more power to them. Quietly lock the doors, turn off your cell phone, listen to a group called Mott the Hoople. There's a song called All the Young Dudes. Bowie wrote it, played almost all the instruments, produced it, and really made Mott the Hoople into a big band because he cared about them. This was the kindness that he showed new bands, other people, and even a knucklehead like me who walked in, who was nobody, put his hand out and said, "Hello, wonderful to meet you." Just, disarming.
I love that you remember that all these. I love that you remember that all these years later, because it's easy to forget how one kind gesture can change someone's whole sort of life and outlook, and it did with you. Gene Simmons, thanks so much joining us from LA. We really appreciate it.
Let's read one of the things, huh? Yeah, we could do that. There's all of these things. Let's read the first thing, because some of the stuff is pretty long. Let's just read the editor, what the editor of the AM said. It's on page A8. I don't know why they have an A, but maybe it's because it's the AM. So this is for January 12th. It was yesterday, died yesterday. Let's read the editorial, A8. Who wants to read something? Read this specifically. We have a full house today. Normally, I just have to pretend like we have a full house. Which is hard when there's only 2 people here. You want to read it? Okay, go ahead.
David Bowie, unique artist, singer, man. Ziggy did so much more than play guitar, and so we were Miss David Bowie. The rest he did in 1996. 1 year later, he earned 50 $25 million by issuing bonds backed by the revenue to be generated by his earliest album.
When it says that he was the first artist to release a song online, which he did in 1996, I don't know if that's accurate. 1996 was right around the time Netscape went, public. 94 or 96. I think it was a little bit after that, but I don't remember that well. But I think it was. They might have the date a little bit wrong. But at any rate, right when the internet was young, he was doing something called Bowie bonds, which at a time he needed kind of the money, and his career wasn't financially going as well as he needed it to go. So he said, okay, my back catalog is going to be proof. Like if you have a company of viability of his bond, which is like stock, But you give a bond, you give money, and then the company generally how a bond works. You guys know how a bond works? You put money into something. Like if you want to build a building or you want to build a bridge, and they can't afford to build it, you give them the money to build the bridge, and then in 10 or 20 or 30 years. They pay you the money back with interest. So U.S. bonds, for example, in America, they sell bonds when they need it. Like when there's things like war bonds when they want to go to war, people give them money and they pay them back afterwards. Well, he created a bond where based on his past record, enough people gave him the money so that, and actually he financed, his continuing career. And his next few albums actually were pretty good. He actually did very well. He actually, even though he produced a huge body of work, and most people are kind of like washed up at that time, and he was always inventing. He continued to go on, and so other artists did it as well. Now I don't know who, but there was a couple of other artists and people who did the same thing. So he started that whole one of those whole things. So that's kind of interesting angle. Very smart guy, actually, probably one of the smartest. Oh wait, keep going. So that's what that's about. It's easy to miss.
His final record released on his 69th birthday 2 days before he died from cancer on Sunday was an appreciated goodbye kiss for star. It's 23 Bowie.
Okay, I think how many of you guys are familiar with him? Nobody actually here. Well, I think it's because where you guys are from. Like I said, mostly you're from. We have China, we have Thailand. For some reason, people in Thailand aren't into Bowie. Maybe they will be because his voice. He's got a great voice, and people in Thailand are really into vocals. And where else? Where is somebody else? We got the Philippines. People are into him in the Philippines a little bit. Yeah. Like I said, in Taiwan, Japan, they're real into him. And where else? Anybody else from?
Japan a lot.
Yeah. Roly Poly, where are you from? Oh, the Philippines. That's right. And who else we got in here? Well, I think the best thing to do is just show you a couple of, I guess, would be to show you a couple of maybe videos. I mean, I could talk and explain it, but if you were curious, you can. He does many interviews that explain himself and his art. So I think his best way to know him is to know him through his art. So let me see if there's some videos. I'll start with the beginning, if it loads. Even though he did have some stuff before this, let's go ahead and let's watch the stuff. 1969 is when he did this. Oddly, he died at the age of 69. 1969, this is when this video came out. Hopefully it will load. Won't give us a normal trouble. And I'll play a couple, two or three. I won't play them all the way through because it'll take time unless you really want to see it, which I don't think you do. But you give you a taste of the different things that he was into. Oh, this is going to be an ad.
No!
There's always an ad.
Savings! You can't skip this Geico ad because it's already over. Geico.
What's going on?
It's the fourth album, right?
This is 1969. This is just, well, it's not his first, but it's one of his big, well, his first big hit. But he's not a hit guy.
Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. 10. Ground control to Major Tom. 7, 6. Commencing countdown, engines on. 3, 2. Check ignition and may God's love be with you. This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirt you wear. Now it's time to leave the capsule if you dare. This is Major Tom to ground control. I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way. And the stars look very different today. Here am I floating round my tin can, far above the world. Planet Earth is blue, and there's nothing I can do.
I'll stop it there. It's a good song all the way through. So that was his first one. Then let me do a couple other ones for you. There's quite a bit. It would take a long time to go through all of them. But another big one that came after that, Ziggy Stardust. I guess maybe we'll go to that one. Yeah, let's go ahead and I think this is a video here. So a few years later,
Ziggy played guitar, jamming good with Weird and Gilly and the Spiders from Mars. He played it left hand, but made it too far. Became the special man, then we were Ziggy's band. Ziggy really sang.
Okay, so that was his. You could notice the way he dressed back then. He was the first person to come out with that. He created glam rock. He created it with his persona. And he continued it. There were a couple other ones. He did, shortly after that, he put on the most elaborate stage show ever presented, which there is some video from it, but I don't know if it's been released. Let's check. From his what's called the Diamond Dogs Tour. A little bit after that. Here's the Diamond Dogs. He's dressed up as a dog here. I don't think they have an image from the tour, but this is him singing a Diamond Dog song.
This ain't rock and roll. This is As they pulled you out of the oxygen tent, you
seem similar, but if you look at all the stuff, every phase he goes through. Let's do Young Americans, because that was the soul phase. He was actually on Soul Train doing that. Here's the album cover. Let's go ahead and see if we can get something from the period. This is a little later still. See, completely different, almost a different artist in this guy.
They pulled in just behind the bridge. He lays her down. He frowns. Gee, my life's a funny thing. Am I still too young? He kissed her then and there. She took his ring, took his babies. It took him minutes, took her nowhere. Heaven knows he'd have taken anything. All night. She wants a young American. The young American standing right through the picture window. She finds a slinky vagabond. He coughs as he passes a Ford Mustang. But heaven forbid she take anything but the freak and his title for nothing. This is a step and cuts his hand, showing nothing. It swims like a song. She cries, whereabouts Papa's hero's gone.
Stand on a giant stage like that with a band behind you. The rehearsal today, I stood in for you.
I'll tell you.
You know what I mean? And the feeling of standing there with that sound coming behind you is very exhilarating.
I had an incredible feeling, and I got a lot of fulfillment from working in productions like Diamond Dogs or the Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah.
But it was one of putting together lots of bits and pieces and loose ends and directing the whole thing and remembering 1,000 things at once. So that was one kind of fulfillment. But now that I'm working just with the band and singing, which is something I haven't done for years, just stand there and sing my songs, I'm finding a new kind of fulfillment. I'll go back to doing productions.
You will?
Oh yeah. I just wanted to go out and sing my songs as a singer-songwriter for a bit.
Yeah.
And then
taking ahead, you could tell it's a complete, almost like a different artist. And then there's, I'll do one or two more here real quick. Just here's another. Then after that, another one a little bit after that was from his Ashes to Ashes album. Now, again, all of this stuff was a little bit, wasn't mainstream pop, it was popular. Here's an advertisement.
So we flew in a mastermind to help him.
Well, did you buy a home?
I mean, but it was good. It had a lot of artistic credibility. He was kind of an artist, so other people looked to him for inspiration. And the fact that he could change so dramatically from different forms of music. And then this was a little bit later after that, like we're jumping ahead like 7 years.
Do you remember Regatha's being in such another song? I've heard a rumor from ground control. Oh no, don't say it's true. They got a message from the action man. I'm happy, hope you're happy too. I've laughed all of needed love, saw the details fall away. The shrieking when nothing is giving, just pictures of trap girls and synthesis. And I ain't got no money and I ain't got no hands. But I'm hoping to kick because glad it is glowing. Ashes to ash and funk to funky. We know Major Tom's a junkie, strung out in heaven's high, hitting an all-time low.
Okay, quite a few. Let me see. There's China Girl and Let's Dance. From a point now, what he had was in a point in his career that he wasn't doing so well. Well, I always say that about different. That's always sparked different changes. Like that. Changes is another good song. Very popular. He skipped the belly back in his early days. Anyway, he created a pop persona. And this is the weird thing, because this was in the 80s, and the pop persona is what like most people tuned into. That's what people recognize him for, because it was like pop music is the biggest, most popular kind of music. So a lot of people tune into that. And people that liked his pop music, they didn't really understand when he changed once again away from that. You know, and they thought, oh, that was good, but his other stuff was lousy, because they weren't, that crowd was not an artistic, the kind of crowd that likes variation. So this is his, one of his more popular, if I can find it on here, one of his more popular songs. You might know this one. Well, I could play China Girl, but I decided to do Let's Dance.
Shoes and dance the blues. Let's dance to the song that played on the radio. Let's sway while color lights up your face. Let's sway through the crowd to an empty space. If you see run with you. If you say hi, cause my love for you would break my heart in two. If you so far, so my arms trembling.
I'm skipping that last there. I guess, yeah, there's a lot of other ones he had. He had the Thin White Suit, I'm skipping, the Station to Station, The Alien. Let me do a clip from The Man Who Fell to Earth, because that plays into the, this is from a movie he did. I don't know if the song or the movie would be better to do. Yeah, let's do a clip from the movie, because that plays into what's going on, another thing that's happening right now. But it's an old movie, and he played in this movie, and he was great for this role because he was such an unusual artist. People thought he was an alien. People thought he was like an angel or an alien. There were really people who thought this.
For the
a lot
impact
of people.
Of his first dramatic performance in The Man Who Fell to Earth.
He fit his character.
This is another dimension of David Bowie, one of the few true originals of our time.
You're really a freak. I don't mean that unkindly. I like freaks.
Is this a weapon?
A weapon?
Well, it's too small for interplanetary travel.
The interesting thing about this movie, the theme was that because he was an alien, his plan was to introduce technology, become rich, build a spaceship, and go back to his planet with the water. And he did introduce the technology, but the problem was, and it's interesting because the problem was that people couldn't accept that rate of change that quickly. It took people time to absorb the technology, which is kind of ironic because now you can understand that. People come up with stuff too much, it's too much for people. And so he wasn't able to become as rich as quickly as he needed to. So in the end of the movie, he left and to become a pop star, which is also ironic.
No!
Tell me I love you.
The Man Who Fell to Earth is a powerful love story, a cosmic mystery, a spectacular fantasy, a shocking, mind-stretching experience in sight, in space, and sex.
And then let's jump forward to today, because so he has a play out right now called Lazarus, which is the second part of this movie, where this guy is the guy, the alien, is still living because he's kind of like lives longer than Earthlings, but he's a little bit strung out, and he hasn't been able to save his planet, and so and that's what the play's about. I don't really know all the details of the play, but it's on Broadway right now. You know, it's a Bowie play. So, and the album that he just came out with, which was on his birthday, which was 2 or 3 days ago, before he died, I'll play that for you, was named after this this is the newest one. This is the one he made.
The movie, right?
No, this is his latest video. He knew he was going to die, and he made this video for everybody. So even in his death, he he created his, he handled everything. It's really amazing. Here, let's see if we can get it to play.
That video is showing a lot of pain already.
Yeah, so this is just was just released on the 7th, a few days ago.
Look up here, I'm in heaven. I've got scars that can't be seen. I've got drama, can't be stolen. Everybody knows me now.
So there you go. Like that's only a taste of what he's done. It is an interesting artist. And that took a while. Even though I just played a little bit, it took a while to get through that. Okay, you have any questions? This is another video he has. You could check if you're interested in that. You could just look on your own and research it, and that's part of the fun of it. But I think he's probably one of the greatest artists of our time. I used to work for Bill Graham, and I think Bowie was the best.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the live
I've seen him many times. Okay, take a break. We'll come back and we'll do something else. Something completely different. All right.
You've been listening to the UnCommonCore podcast with Thomas Howell. I'm Satoko Smith. Thank you for listening.